fences. It's time to discuss operations and expenses. It's time, it's really time to elevate small businesses. It's time for Joe to drop his knowledge, it's relentless. This rhyme of mine is getting a bit ridiculous. So here we go, we're live with Joe and the show.
What is up, Fence fam? Welcome to the final live interview coming to you live from FenceTech 2025, Salt Lake City. It has been an incredible show. If you guys have been watching the interviews, you know there's a ton of energy in this room. There's a ton of people still in this room, which is pleasantly surprising. It's
very surprising.
It's a nice surprise for sure. If you guys are in the fence industry, if you follow my channel, if you just know fencing in general, you know exactly who I'm talking to. But Rachel, for the one or two people out there that may not have met you, a brief introduction.
Well, my name is Rachel Cruzy, and that's like cruising in a car.
Okay,
Just, you know, everybody sees to spell my name, and it's kind of hard to pronounce. They pronounce it
it's
something
not really
else.
phonetical.
So just think about it as cruising in a car, and then just put a long E at the end. So Rachel Cruzy. I've been with MySalesman for a long time now. This is my 10th FenceTech.
10th FenceTech.
Yes. So second time back in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
2020, right during the COVID outbreak.
That's right.
Was the last time we were here,
That's
but
right.
we've had a great show so far.
Good. Yeah, it's been pretty busy. So Wednesday, all my days are jumbling up, but Wednesday is when we started. An incredible crowd Wednesday afternoon through the show floor. Yesterday was steady. So it wasn't shoulder to shoulder, but as I was looking out, like it seemed like the booth stayed pretty full. It was a pretty consistent, steady crowd. Would you say that's accurate on your guys' end?
Yeah, that's very accurate. They were busting through the gates at Wednesday, so we were very busy. That half a day went really, really quickly for us. Typically, the second day is busier, but like you said, it was steady. Like it didn't seem busier than Wednesday, but it was definitely steady all day long. So, and we talk. We have a lot to talk about. You know, we've got customers that we like to catch up with. So
Sure.
We literally talk. The time goes so fast anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a great show. It really has. So, talking MySalesman, why don't you give us a brief overview? I'm sure everyone home probably already knows what MySalesman is, but there might be a few new people. Can you give us a general overview of what MySalesman is?
No, absolutely. MySalesman is that lead qualifying tool that sits on the front end of your website. Matt created it because we're trying not to waste time, right? We want to be able to qualify our leads, make sure that we're going in the right direction when we meet with customers on site, that this is actually our customer. This is just the way to vet everybody before we go out. We plant a seed and we weed out the tiger here. So I like to say weed and seed, kind of a garden analogy there.
One of the things you're trying to do is avoid the conversation where you go out, you measure the yard, you give them a bid, say it's $8,500. Golly, I really thought it was going to be $2,000 or $3,000. I can't afford this at all.
Exactly. That's 100% why Matt created the MySalesman tool.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not to ever take that salesmanship or that building a relationship one-on-one with your customers. It's just made to enhance the entire process.
Yeah.
So
they both have a place.
They both have a
place.
Both have a place, and it trust me, homeowners don't want their time wasted just as much as contractors don't want their time wasted. So it's a win-win for everyone. Well,
and I tell you what, where it really came in handy was during the pandemic, where in our area you couldn't pass paper, you had to stay 6 feet apart, there's all these restrictions, and it really made in-home selling impossible. I mean, you couldn't go in the home.
Right.
Madness.
It was. I mean, and I remember leaving here in 2020, heading back to Nebraska. We drove, and then the attendance was down because it was just kind of nothing had been shut down right at that moment.
Yeah.
But it was just right on the edge. So it wasn't the best show that year. So we got home and all of a sudden the phone would not stop ringing because it was really a lifeline to contractors because it was the only way that they could really stay in business and be able to function and reach their customers. Yeah,
for a period of years, that was our mandatory first step, is you had to go through the quote tool. And it was mandatory in the beginning because of the pandemic protocols. Right. And then we just got so used to it. We're like, we're just going to stick with this actually because it's good, right? So it's a satellite overview of the home that then you can draw on. And now there's a grid feature where even if you don't see the home, you can lay it out.
Or even if you have like OCD and you like perfectly straight lines and you flip that grid feature on so you can just
snap straight lines.
Yep, exactly.
And then you pick your style, you pick all your options, you add in your gates, you add in removal if any of those are applicable, and then it gives you a budget.
Gives you a budget.
So a lot of times when people were calling and saying, hey, I really need a fence, because if you think about it, during the pandemic, everyone was stuck at home. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were working from home or they just couldn't go into their jobs. And especially the work from home crowd, if your new office is a Zoom office, well, you can't have kids running around in the background. You can't have dogs barking in the background. They've got to go outside. Well, now we're going to need a fence. Right. And so fences were incredibly in demand. So how do we satisfy that without being able to hand an estimate over, without being able to have a conversation within 6 feet of each other? And that's where the MySalesman tools shine, at least for us.
Oh, yeah. And that's, I mean, everybody was staying at home and all of a sudden they were getting money pushed into their bank accounts. And so everybody wanted a fence.
Yeah.
We couldn't keep up. Like it was with our fence company, like literally everybody wanted a fence. So it was a great way that we could get information out to our customers before our on-site visit.
Yeah. Well, and what we found too is that it actually lets you have that pricing conversation before any of your competitors are on site either.
Absolutely. That's
what we found out later on. When you could start going back and selling in the home, we still found it to be our competitive advantage that our process was they go through the quote tool, as long as the budget it shows you is within their budget that they're expecting, we would schedule an online phone call. We relied on those measurements as long as, we would look at them to make sure the layout made sense. We'd overlay with the county GIS system or something like that. But as long as those were good, we'd have a phone conversation about pricing. We'd send them a proposal. A lot of times those could happen in the same day. So they're actively just calling around looking for pricing. Well, I've got them a proposal before they maybe even called another competitor,
right, or
before the competitor had a chance to be in their yard.
Right. It's a lot has to do with the speed of how you, when that first touch with that customer, how fast can you, get them information, get them off the market, and just really understand if they're your customer and move forward from there.
Well, and to your point, customers don't want to wait around at home. They don't want to schedule time away from the office, away from work, sitting around the house, meeting with a contractor. It's usually on a lunch break, right? So they're giving up their lunch so they can go meet with a contractor. Or could we do this on your time? If you're sitting in your pajamas at 9:30 on a Friday night, I can get your proposal. You can just click.
Joe, that's just the way of the world right now. Like everybody's so busy. If they're not working, they've got activities or running here to do kid activities. And a lot of the time, I need a fence. I have kids at home. I need that perimeter safety for them. But the only time I think about it is after the dish is done, the kids are in bed, I'm sitting there on my phone and I'm Googling, hey, look, you can see our MySalesman sign right behind. I just noticed.
Yep.
You can
Very
see our
well
MySalesman
placed.
sign. So a lot of the time, our shoppers who are looking for a fence, they're doing it at 11:30 p.m. at night in their pajamas.
Yeah. Well, because when they complete that, we get an email as a contractor. Right. And it's funny to watch those timestamps. So we'll get to work the next morning and open up the emails. Like, a lot of these happen at night,
right?
After the dinner hour.
Absolutely.
So you've got a tool that's allowing you to get proposals, if nothing else than a budgetary proposal, to a customer in a time space that you're not working. Right. It really gives you a 24/7 salesperson that lives on your website.
It absolutely does.
So it's fantastic. We've loved using it. I know a lot of people love using it. Now there's what's new at MySalesman? There's a few new features there.
There are a few new features. We've worked hard the last few years to push some releases. Sometimes those releases take a little bit getting used to, because we, as the contractor who have used it for so many years, are used to the software behaving in a certain way.
Yeah.
So the user itself, our customers, Mrs. and Mr. Jones, have never used it before, so it makes no difference to them. But we did have a user experience person go back and do research on the MySalesman product, where the heat strokes were, where the customers were moving their pencil or their clicks through, and the idea was to try to move them through the program without them having to think much where they hit the next button. So it does look a little different.
Sure.
It looks newer.
Yeah.
It looks refined. But we are always constantly working on it. So we are in the fence industry, and we know that when you grow, you've got to change to grow, right?
Sure.
We will continue to make a better product.
Well, and so you talked about some front-end improvements. There's also been some back-end improvements as well, like on the contractor side.
Absolutely. There's a lot of new reporting features, which, a lot of people have CRMs and they're able to utilize that, but maybe for the small contractor or anyone who just wants to organize the data, there's so much data on their reports. I know so with our fence company, Empire Netting and Fence, we have a marketing director now that gets on that and is able to make drip campaigns with customers that haven't purchased from us.
Yep.
But there's queries that can be done. You can look at what customers are clicking on when they're going to your site. So all different kinds of things on the back end. And if any of our customers who have not logged in, and trust me, there's a lot of customers that just rely on getting an email notification that a customer went through.
Yeah.
They don't actually go on the back end and see all the detailed ways that they can utilize their MySalesman tool.
Sure.
We would be happy to do an onboard session with any teammates, contractors and their team, to show them any updates or get them using MySalesman to best practices, and just opening their eyes and giving them ideas of what they can do.
Yeah, if you haven't logged into your MySalesman tool in like a year, it's going to look a lot different.
It is. You may want to refresh your page.
Well, and hopefully you're updating your pricing more than once a year, though. So maybe you've been in there and it looks a little different, but you haven't played around with it.
Right, and with your pricing, and I always tell people this because I know our sales guys on our fence side of things, our range is so big that they don't really mess with changing their prices, because the budget range is already capturing a little bit below and quite a bit above. So.
Well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
So when a customer goes through, they lay out their fence project, they pick their material type and all that, they're given a price range. And let's say, I'm wanting a 6-foot privacy fence, I lay it out and it says $7,000 to $8,500 or whatever. Right. Where does that price come from?
So within the pricing rules on the back end of MySalesman, there are several different options to kind of narrow down and skew things as you will, as far as, well, let me just digress just a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was talking with a customer here not too long ago, and I noticed that they weren't using one of those pricing rules, which is a short base or a length based pricing rule.
Yep.
So you have that option. If a customer goes in and only draws, say, 40 linear feet of fence, you can install a rule that's you're adding $300 to their quote.
Yeah.
Yes,
you can implement a minimum price for the project.
Yeah, and there's two different options. There's a minimum dollar amount, and then there's a length base.
Yeah.
So you can choose either one.
Sure.
There's also the radius-based short charge that some people aren't utilizing either, which basically is you have your home base and then you put your radius, like if it's X amount of miles away, we add $100, which you are going to have MOB charges, so you might as well get those put in on.
And there's several of those, right? Like there's, so the way we have our set up is we've got our preferred area, service area, and then we've got a little bit bigger. We'll travel, but there's a trip charge involved. And then we have just kind of everything else, right? If it's more than, I don't know what ours is set up, 60 miles or something,
Right.
then it adds like $10,000 to it.
Yes.
Like we're not doing it, right? Or at least we want to have a conversation. But it's funny that we'll have people use the tool from other parts of the country for whatever reason, and the quote tool will come back for like $93,000 or something. Like, well, all right, listen, I would do it for $93,000, 100%. But to your point, there's ways to kind of filter out those pricings, or not filter out, but apply different pricing rules.
Apply the different pricing rules just to make sure that it is, what we're doing is we're not trying to sell that product at that point in time. We want the customers or Mr. and Mrs. Jones to understand about how much a fence costs.
Sure.
But moreover, that's where our relationship starts with that customer.
Yeah.
So that's really the most important part, is just dropping them in the workflow, having what you said is the mandatory first step when they come to our fence company. So they basically drop into our reports, right? But we're also able to walk them through the steps and make sure that they understand that this isn't the exact price. And that's why we have the budget range on.
Well, and the budget range is adjustable.
Yes.
Right. So in ours, it'll say, and obviously we don't talk pricing on live broadcast or on broadcasting at all. But anyway, but say for whatever type of fence we charge $50 a foot or whatever it is. Then we can say, all right, so if it's $50 a foot on average, I would like for you to display 10% below and a 15% above that number, or whatever numbers work for your business. Right. And that's how it gets that $7,000 to $8,500 range.
Exactly.
Excellent. And then you can change that. Like you can update your pricing, you can update your percentages. I like having less below than above. I like my number to end up closer to the bottom number than the top number. I think, and I listen to a podcast, so psychologically, if you give someone a price range, they justify the higher price. So if I say it's $7,000 to $8,500, the customer goes, can we afford $8,500? Yeah, okay. And if I come in at $7,300, wow, I thought it was going to be $8,500. Well, let's do it. I was ready to spend $8,500.
Yes.
Now you got to find that right number, because if it's $9,000, you go, oh, I can't do $9,000, and your number was going to be $7,300. You likely lost a sale that you could have had a better chance at.
And Joe, and to that point, when Matt with the founder of Empire, when he refers one of our customers that call, hey, jump online. We have this really cool tool that, we created. It's going to give you some budgetary information. It's just a budget, so don't worry about the pricing. We'll come out, we'll verify everything. So he reassures people, that's not our number, because we are at that bottom end of the number, because we understand that psychology and that. So we know when our team goes out and verifies the measurements and give that actual estimate to that customer, well, they were planning on probably getting the fence at the higher price anyway. So there's zero hesitation on writing that check and just pushing it across the table.
Because they were ready to spend it.
They were ready to spend it.
Mm-hmm. So MySalesman makes it easy to do business, right? Makes easier for your customers to do business with you and know exactly what they're looking at. We also use it a lot at trade shows.
Yes.
Very handy at trade shows, because number one question, someone comes up, how much is your fence? Well, the answer is, it depends on what you want, where it is, and how much, da-da-da-da-da. So that's one answer. The other answer is, well, you know what? Let's see. If you got a minute, we can just draw this out. Now, here's a tip for you. We do it on a big screen TV, so they're seeing it, but also everyone else walking by seeing you draw. And I can't tell you, still, people are just amazed when you're like, all right, what's the address? Is that your house? That is my house. Is that my house? And they'll look at the neighbor, that's my house. All right, well, is this the fence that's around your house now? Yeah. That's the one you want replaced? It is. Well, it's like magic. It's like we're working magic here. But then everyone walking by is also seeing that, and so
and they want to turn.
Yeah, they want to queue up. They're
Right.
like, well, how much is it at my house? And it's doing a couple things. One, it's giving them an idea what it would cost.
Right.
Two, it's also that's lead generation, right? We're also
Exactly.
capturing information. We're also following up afterwards. Hey, if you'd like, we'd love to come out and finalize that number to let you know exactly where in that range we're going to come in at. I would be happy to send you a scheduling link if you'd like to pick a time. We'll come see you. How's that sound? And it works.
It
works like crazy.
does work, and we have the option on when we are collecting the contact information. We have the option on, hey, how'd you hear about us?
Yeah. Yep.
That's that one thing in marketing that's really hard to gauge the ROI on a Google ad or a mailer or maybe a radio ad.
Exactly.
So we're actually asking on the MySalesman side of things, asking the user to enter in that information.
How'd you hear about us?
Yeah, and a new feature is if they're on the drop down, if it's not Facebook or Google or whatnot, now they can type in like, I heard Joe Everest on a YouTube
Oh, good.
podcast.
Good.
So that's available too. So, but
Okay.
to your point, at the trade show, you can run queries on your report page, and I only want to query all my home show potential clients because I want to hit them first and hit them hard because we just saw them yesterday.
Or I want to deliver a customized message. It was great seeing you at the Lawn and Garden Show over at the
Yes.
fairgrounds. So now it doesn't sound as much of a sales
call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
It's just a follow-up. Hey, it's
Fun.
great seeing you. Just wanted to touch base with you and see.
And I guarantee, Joe, when those folks were walking through that home and garden show, they probably did not walk away with a budget from any other company
No.
that was there.
Well,
They walked away with a budget. I mean, they reached in their pocket, got an email, and
Yep.
had all of your information and your budget range. And so,
well, Rachel, that's not the case for us.
oh, it's not?
Because one of our competitors uses your tool as well.
Oh, well, that's okay, though. We like competitor. We like
No.
everybody.
But guys, so if you're at these shows, if you don't have anyone else using it, it's a great opportunity, because if you don't, there's a really good chance one of your competitors is going to.
Oh, I'm sure it is. But you know what? It's just like any other tool in the industry. If I'm using this new, pounder over here,
Yeah.
so is that guy. So is that guy.
Absolutely.
It's just like another tool in the toolbox.
Well, and it shows you how useful the tool is.
Right.
When several companies are using the same
right.
one.
And so back in the day, like one of the biggest obstacles with fence contractors, well, besides that, was hardly any software.
You're right.
So software was scary. But one of the things is my competitors are going to know my numbers. I'm like, you don't think they probably know your number anyway?
Well, that's the thing is, oh, wow, yeah. Hey, do you know your competitors' numbers? Well, yeah, I mean, I've got a pretty good idea. What are the chances they've got a pretty good idea about your numbers now too? Because we all have those customers that they'll take your quote and they'll slide it, or so your customer's quote, and they'll slide it across the table and they'll say, well, this is what so-and-so had. And
Right.
they're looking for the best deal. Well, all right. Well, now I know what my competitor's number is, and I mean, I feel like that happens all the time.
But there's a budget range, so they don't
Yeah.
really know your exact number. And
Right.
so
And like I said, that range is changeable. It can be 10 to 15%, or it can be
Exactly.
9 to 13%. So there's really not a great way of dialing exactly what the number is.
exactly. So, and this is my response to other contractors, maybe wanting to possibly look at MySalesman, and this is their question, and they're like, oh, well, they get my number and they share it with the next person, and then they're just shopping you out by price, and come back and say, hey, well, you're $2,000 than this guy, and you $2,000 than this guy, and why is that? And that's when the fence contractor, the salesman, says, I am really concerned why that they are so low. I don't understand why their numbers are the way they are. So they're not your customers. If they're not looking for value and they're only looking for a price point, then they're not your customer anyway.
Yeah, the best answer is, man, I don't know. Why do you think? What do you think could be different?
Right.
I mean, if we're all buying materials from roughly the same places, I mean, there's not 100 suppliers out there. There's a few, but we all buy from probably the same group of people. And our labor force is from the same labor pool. So if those are the same, what could be different?
Right.
Well, then you let your customer come up with their own reasons on why. And then you're not the guy saying, well, I'll tell you why, because they use junk material and junk this. Anyway, but there's that concern of they'll find your numbers, but they'll find your numbers regardless. And that's where the salesperson really steps in and says, is this a numbers conversation? Because if this is a price-based conversation, I might have missed something anyway. We should be talking about quality, or we should talk about lead time, or we should talk about endurance and longevity, that sort of thing.
100%. And contractors, they need to adjust their thinking to that. Let's educate our homeowners and find out, this is what we do. If you're not in tune with that, or you want to shop us out because of price points, you might be calling us in a couple of years to build a new fence. I think education is key to everything.
Absolutely. And I think we also need to understand that there's more to the sale. You don't need every sale.
Right.
So industry average is like 30% success rate, which means you're going to hear 7 no's for every 3 yeses. And those 7 no's might be all in a row. Right. They very well could be. So you don't win them all, but this tool gives you a better chance at winning them before your competitor even gets out there. Gives your customer more education on what probably price range it should be in. So maybe then they can ask themselves, well, if they told me it was going to be $7,000, $8,500 and someone else came in here and it was $3,800, well, that's not even in the ballpark of what these other guys. So it gives your customer some education. It gives them a resource to try to gauge, where they are in the industry ballpark.
Right. And, I was in the women's forum yesterday, and we were talking about marketing. And if your consumer out there doesn't understand what sets you apart from your competitor, I think it's a good conversation that the company should have on. We better get some education about not only who we are, but quality of materials, and that's not to throw any other company, their competitors under the bus, but that branding, and we talked about the difference between branding and marketing. Just educating the consumer, so before they even come and ask you for a bid, they're coming to you because they know the quality of and workmanship and all of the above.
Yeah, they're coming to you for a specific reason.
They're coming for you for value.
Absolutely. Well, before we start wrapping up, I want to ask you a little bit about FenceTech. We started talking about it in the beginning. This is your 10th FenceTech.
My 10th.
How have you seen FenceTech in general progress and evolve?
So I think a huge chunk of the difference is the continuity between everybody being a help to everybody. Yeah. I have seen the whole competitive issue kind of just fizzle away. Yeah. I think everybody's in it to see others win.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you see that a lot with the vendors here.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of the vendors are helping each other. I forgot this or I forgot that. And they're here to help. Right.
They are.
Understanding that makes the industry that we all operate in better.
Right. And it's cool because you have this close-knit industry and you're all distributed across the country, yet you probably see each other more than I see Joe more than my own family.
Sometimes,
So you really build really strong relationships with, and kind of relationships that you go out and hang out and watch some Utah hockey.
Utah Hockey Club just absolutely stomped the Wild. They did that last night.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
It was a great time. Rachel, before we wrap up, I feel like I said that already, but as we're wrapping up, if there was a vendor out there that had been thinking about FenceTech but hasn't really pulled the trigger, what word of advice would you have to that, or not contract, but to that vendor?
The vendor, business is all about building relationships, and if you're not coming to FenceTech and you are a vendor, I strongly urge you need to build those strong relationships with your clients and your customers. And because they may come in as clients or customers or partners or whatever but they leave as family.
Yeah.
So that's when you come to FenceTech, that's what's established here.
Absolutely. And you establish, as you talked about earlier, you establish relationships with other vendors.
Absolutely.
Right? So you really start to get yourself plugged in with the industry as a whole.
We have so many friends in the fence industry, and we use products and services, and we became a resource for other contractors and other vendors. And hey, you should call this person, or you should call this person, or I'll have this person call you, because it sounds like what you need is what they have. So we get to make a lot of connections, or help establish relationships between different people. So
absolutely. You got to be here to get plugged in.
You got to be here.
Very good. Well, Rachel, they are absolutely getting ready to take this whole thing down around us, I think. We've heard a couple announcements. I think it's time to start taking this thing down. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys as a company being such great, partners with us as a company. We love it. I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you too so much, Joe. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Very welcome. Very welcome. Guys, like I said, final live. We couldn't do another live interview because they are literally taking this show down around our booth. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Stay tuned for more content in the coming weeks around FenceTech as a whole. For now, Joe Everest, joined by
Rachel Cruzy with MySalesman.
Salesman, reminding you that good fences
make good neighbors.
And we'll see you next time.